2 million. Bro. Oh my god. Yeah, my shred's at 2 million. That's crazy. What's up, guys? It's Metsuka here, and I'm back with another build video. And this is an update to the Oracle Ice Wolf, and we are currently sitting at level 99 on the private league, and we have taken the build and we have scaled it to godly levels. Currently, the way that the build is running is absolutely amazing. It's tanky, it's deals heavy damage, it's got lots and lots of good stuff going on for it, and I'm just going to go ahead and get into it and run through the build with you guys. My old build video, I have totally scrapped a lot of that stuff, and you know, there has been a lot of changes, so I will go over everything with you guys, from the skill tree to the gear to why I do things and the skill gems. And so this is probably going to be a long video, but I want to make sure that I do try to cover as much as possible. There is a build guide. My build guide is on Maxroll. Link in the description. Also, there is a link to the POB. So if you want to get into the POB and go into some numbers, you can as well. So what we'll do is we will go into the POB, and that way it's a little bit more fluent with numbers and such here. So currently we are sitting at about 6.4 million DPS, with Shred sitting at 2.6 and Cross Slash. These two are doing the majority of the damage when it comes to single target, and the Moonbeams and the Herald of Ice doing most of the clear here. So and Lunar Assault, just freezing everything is just like an activator, and Pounce is a great many of things. But the DPS is very, very high right now. We can take it much further. We are not doing it just yet, just because we like where the build is survivability wise. I'm not ready to sacrifice any survivability for damage. I haven't died in like days, and I'm just tearing through all the content here. If you look up here to effective hit pool, we are sitting at 54,000 currently, and we do have a physical damage reduction of 77%, and we have a pretty chunky amount of elemental damage as well. And a lot of this is coming from some of the gear options, as well as what we've done here on the tree. Okay, so we'll just get started with the tree, because this is the most complicated version of everything. And then we'll go into other things as well. So starting with the Oracle, I'm not sure, does it show it here? Oh, we have, we've got the top row to inevitable crits and lesser harm for damage reduction. And we have the bottom row here for the keystones and the unseen path. So you'll see I have a bunch of keystone passives here, and we're able to allocate within the bubbles. And then the unseen path gives us these blue pathways here that we can take, that are otherwise hidden unless you're an Oracle. Now, starting with the Oracle. Now, if you're leveling, I would not go down this route first. This is more of a switch over to when you get into a situation where your DPS is enough and now you need to become tanky. Then you can take the points out of this first row here. But if you're starting out level 1, definitely go down the attack damage route here and then later you can swap that out because these are just minimal DPS increases here. So you don't need them. You'll much rather have the survivability through here. You're going to want to take this node here. This is armor, plus armor applies to elemental damage. So that means whatever armor that you have, so my armor is 19,000, a percentage of this goes to the damage reduction here to elemental damage, and that is on top of resist. So you have your resist, and then you have your armor that applies to elemental damage, your effective hit pool with your damage reduction to elemental damage. Okay, so there's two different defensive pools going on here. And then we're just going to go ahead and take this increased area of effect, a mobilization, and the increase in damage here. And also this gives strength and intelligence. The build is very hungry for attributes. I have a ton of attributes within the build because it requires all three stats. And then we just go up here through the middle, grab the damage, grab the skill speed and the crit chance, grab the armor over here with the element threshold as well. And then what you're going to do is you're going to path up here. So at this stage of the game, my skills, they cost a ton of life. Like Lunar Blessing cost 566. And when I pop it, you'll notice that it takes a big chunk of health away, right? So I did opt for taking these 3 regen nodes here because it is 65% regen and it is not while stationary. So you could be moving and you will still be regenerating life. You'll notice that in the Druid passive tree here, you'll see a lot of nodes that have regeneration rate while stationary, right? While stationary, you know, down here as well, while stationary. This is just straight regen and it's a significant amount. So this definitely helps. Going up the middle, we take the rage. So we are sitting at 80 rage here. And rage is an attack multiplier. So that is basically an 80% attack damage boost multiplicative to the build. So we are stacking rage. And then moving up here, we grab the bestial rage here because it generates rage force on melee hit. And every 10 rage grants an increase of 12 damage, you know, so we are getting a 96% physical damage boost here with 80 rage. So you can see it's about 375 with my build. And then we spec'd up into here with the damage nodes. It's pretty significant. Got about 1 million DPS coming out of this section here. We're ignoring the minion damage because we don't have minions. Moving up here into the middle, I do have a time loss sapphire. This is one that I crafted last night. We popped it in. It's not perfect. The rolls are low on it. But it is energy shield and on the small nodes. So all these little nodes here, you can see little 2% increases in energy shield. So any small nodes that are allocated within this bubble, they are getting energy shield as well. It doesn't look like it's allocating over here. Actually, it is. It's just not showing on the tooltip, but it is allocating it in the equation. And then the large notables are giving us crit damage and skill speed. So every one of these single nodes that we have taken, they're also giving us damage multipliers as well. So we definitely want to get this upgraded to a higher value, but for something that I just crafted randomly, it's pretty decent. And we are able to take advantage of it in this location pretty well, with lots of nodes being taken and lots of small passives being taken. So it is definitely a pretty good location for it. You could put it down here as well. This is an acceptable location, but we are only spec'd into 3 small nodes here. So, and up here we're spec'd into 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and I believe 1 right here. So we have more than double the small nodes. I don't think that these get allocated. These nodes here in the middle, they don't actually count towards the time loss jewel. So that is what we have there for our jewel in the middle. We have spec'd into Zealot's Oath. Now, we do not have energy shield recharge. Our energy shield is based on our excess life recovery from our life regeneration. And that is why we have spec'd into life regeneration, because we are using Zealot's Oath, and that is how we keep our energy shield going, which allows me to spec within this bubble here and just kind of pick the nodes that we want. We went ahead and spec'd into crit damage bonus. Also, we receive less crit damage bonus. We spec'd into the regenerate life per second, and we got the empowered attacks. And this is good because our attacks are always being empowered through Arctic Howl, which we'll get into later. And also anything that's ancestral boosted is going to receive the boost from the empowered attacks. So that would be Lunar Assault and Pounce. They both have ancestral boosted. We have also spec'd into the remove ignite when you war cry. So we're war crying constantly between our lunar blessing and our Arctic Howl. So we're constantly, if we're ignited, it's being removed. You're also getting the bonus from crit damage and skill speed here. And then we went ahead and went down here and spec'd into the armor energy shield nodes here with defend with 120% armor while not on low energy shield. It's a pretty large amount of effective hit pool. It works great. It's within this bubble as well, so a yay for that. Moving up through here to the top, we went ahead and came down here and spec'd into the armor and energy shield nodes here. And then the red lines and the green lines are the weapon swap points, the weapon skill points. So my main DPS weapon, my main talisman is the red, and my Arctic Howl talisman is the green. Okay. So with our main weapon, we have spec'd up here into Spirit of the Bear for Big Dam while they are immobilized, also known as frozen. And we have spec'd over here to gain increased stun threshold with armor and additional max fire res for tankiness. And then moving up this way, we have spec'd into accuracy and elemental damage. We have taken the 8% damage as extra lightning. And skill effect duration, this is mainly for Arctic Howl and Lunar Blessing. But we spec'd into this totem node to get here, to get into this bubble. This doesn't provide us anything but allowing us to cherry pick what we want. We have spec'd into Dangerous Blossom and Storm Charged. These are some pretty good nodes to pick. We are no longer using dimensional weak spot. And the reason for that is you can see that there is no DPS increase. That is because we don't need the elemental resistance inverted at all. So we have multiple ways of bringing their resist down. And since we have our anoint on our amulet is Heavy Frost, this is the best anoint you can have on this build by a large margin. This is incredibly strong, much stronger than anything else on the tree. So this gives you 20% freeze buildup, but it also ignores non-negative elemental resistance on frozen enemies. So if you freeze somebody, you are ignoring their elemental resistance. There is no chance for it to be inverted. It is ignoring it 100%. As you can see, this node specifically is providing 2.2 million DPS. Definitely the best node. So we do not need this node here. It is a waste. So we have not spec'd into that. Moving up to... Oh, also, we don't spec into this. This is 35% increased physical damage. I did have it here. However, you can see that it is only 87,000 DPS. It is a very small amount of DPS. I spec'd out of that, and I put the point here. As you can see, it is a much higher, and this one also provides some explosions when they die. So physical damage in this build from the tree percentage wise does not scale that amazing with my current setup. It may with a different type of talisman possibly, but with mine it doesn't scale well, as you can see here, so we don't need it. Moving up to the jewel up here, we have a Heart of the Well. This is one that I have crafted today. I had a different one. I was using some Leech's Instant and some skill effect duration. So this one just provides some utility, some global cooldown, and some damage. If you are going to go with the Heart of the Well diamond, I suggest you get a minimum of 2 of the gain damage as extra damage. You will want to preferably go with fire and either cold or lightning. Those are going to be the 2 highest damage numbers that you can put into a Heart of the Well. And then you can put whatever you want for the other 2. Mine just so happened to hit. These are the 2 additional modifiers that I was given an option when I was crafting it. So I just took those. It's actually quite nice. I do like the cooldown. It feels good to be able to pounce all the time and always have all my skills up, ready to go at a decent rate. You can see it provides a decent amount of DPS, about 600k. Let's see here. So moving into, we'll do the green stuff later. That's the second talisman. Moving into this tree here. So what I did was, when I hit level 99, I was spec'd into this section here, just last level, this whole section. I took all of this out. As you can see, if you were to spec into these 4 nodes here, this gives you about 44 life regen, some life leech, and some effective hit pool by these 4 nodes. But if you spec into these 5 nodes that here, you're going to receive about 7,000 effective hit pool and about 88.4 life regen. As you can see, there's 4% fizz damage. This is a lot of armor in here and a lot of regen. And it's while stationary, which is totally acceptable because we are stationary all the time. We're always moving, but when we attack, we're stationary. So you can see my regen here is when I'm stationary. You can see the armor too. When I'm moving, it fluctuates. But whenever we attack, right? Or we pop a war cry, or, you know, so it's constantly up and down, right? But whenever we're attacking, it's up. And that's what we want, because that's when we're not moving. And we're more liable to be hit when we're not moving. So we took those nodes there. And then moving down this way, we have just gone all the way down here. We have blood magic. Now, all of our mana is, we don't have any mana, and all of our skills cost life. And now, since Zealot's Oath, it needs life recovery to regenerate energy shield, and blood magic requires life to spend skills, then regen, dipping into regen is like a double dip for both of these, so you're able to maintain your health and you're able to maintain your energy shield pretty damn good by speccing into some life regen, and it works well together. And within this node here, we have a 40% increase to melee at close range. We have specced over here and grabbed the freeze buildup, reduce freeze duration on us, and increased freeze threshold. That way, you know, we don't get frozen as often. We like this. This is great for us. And then down here, we're getting 1% increased armor per rage that we have. We're also gaining rage when we get hit. This is great. We have 80 rage. This is a 80% increase in armor at full rage. We're at full rage all the time. And then right here, this is 30% of our armor applies to the elemental damage that we are taking, which goes to these nodes here, the effective hit pool on the side here. And then over here, some more armor, just raising that effective hit pool, but also defend with 120% armor against projectiles. You'll notice when you're running through the campaign in early maps, projectiles are going to wreck you. So once later in the game, once you're able to get something like this, it's going to really help with those annoying projectiles, giving you a huge boost in armor. And then going up this way and grabbing all of this crit damage, crit chance. This is a pretty significant boost in DPS. And then let's see here. So we, in this jewel slot, so we have a jewel slot. We have a From Nothing diamond. Currently, we are running Resolute Technique, and this is a pretty good one because you're able to grab Honorless, which gives armor, and it gives melee damage against immobilized enemies. It's pretty big. We got some crit chance, crit damage, and stun buildup. We've got life with increased stun threshold, so we get stunned less. And when you have, the more life you have, the more regen you have. You can see that there is a life regen. If we were to pull this out, we would lose 12 life regen. So the more health we have, the more regen we have, since it does scale together. We've got this one with more life, more area of attack, area of effect for attacks. And there's an additional chance for slam skills to cause an additional after effect. This isn't a big deal, but it does work with Pounce, so it does provide value there. And then we've got reduced slowing potency of debuffs on you, which is amazing. So if you've been playing this game, you probably get slowed all the time through temporal chains, chill, you name it. There's just slowing all over the place. So this helps make those interactions feel much better, okay? Now, there is an option here. You don't have to spec into Resolute Technique. This was the cheapest option, so I took it. There is another option. So if you wanted to, what you could do, I'm considering this. It would be a DPS increase. However, you would lose some you would lose some things that are nice for utility. This is the much more expensive option, is you could, instead of taking that, you could take Chaos Inoculation. You could then spec into Heavy Frost instead of an Anoint. And then you could take Honorless or Overwhelming Strike or whatever else you want to take as an Anoint. And then you could spec into this down here as well, Thin Ice. So you would get more freeze buildup and 50% increased damage against frozen enemies. It's a pretty massive damage. The node itself is 560k. Also within the bubble that you would be able to spec is 20% crit damage, 10 strength, and 20 physical damage. It's a nice buff. It gives a little bit of health. Very good node as well. So you could go 1, 2, 3 here with those. There's also gain 11 damage as chaos damage, another 200k there. There are some other DPS nodes and also utility. There is this one here, which increases the skill effect duration. So this would be great with your Lunar Blessing or your Arctic Howl buffs. So great there. There is this. It's a small node, probably not worth taking because it's only 70k DPS. But you do have access to, I believe, I could be wrong, these two up here, which are quite nice. So additional stun recovery and gain additional stun threshold equal to your max energy shield, which we do have is energy shield. And you do gain additional ailment threshold to part of your energy shield as well. And the reduced duration of elements on you. So if you do get hit with shock or freeze or something, right, then you are going to, it's not going to be on you as long. So this is another option. It's the higher DPS option for sure. So it is totally up to you. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not because I really do like the reduced slowing potency. I also really like the stun threshold with the life gains. The life gains are minimal, but they synergize with the build quite well. I also like the area of effect. Area of effect in this build is incredible. If there was a way for me to spec into these 3 nodes, I would. I'm still trying to figure out how I will be able to do that. I'm sure I'll figure it out, but for now, that's what we got. And then coming over here, we've got all this rage here. You've got rage, max rage. This helps go to the max rage buildup, which increases our armor and our damage. And then coming over here, what you got here is Warcry speed and Warcry cooldown and increased damage for each time you've Warcried. So this goes for both. This is a main scat. So every time I Warcry, we're gaining damage and they're coming off cooldown quickly. So it's pretty 1, 2, 3, go into there and grab those. And then coming over this way, with our main DPS, we've grabbed these 3 damage nodes here. As you can see that these 3 provide about 505k. If you compare it to a 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So you can come up here and put the 4 up here, and you could get higher up there once you have 4 nodes. But it's only 3 nodes to receive the 500 damage multiplier, right? So 1, 2, 3 would here just wouldn't be. So this is 220, 380, and 480, right? So this one is slightly higher. I would have to get another point to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I would get a DPS. I would get a DPS increase, I believe, right? So this one is 108, 50, 200, so 485. So it would cost 4 nodes to get 485. So it's actually lower DPS to spec into here, and it costs more points. So we just took the 3 nodes, and we're getting more DPS this way. And then moving down into here, we're grabbing all this crit chance, this strength, crit damage, strength, and then specking down into here is life regeneration when we get affected by any damaging ailment. So poison, bleed, stuff like that. It's a pretty big boost in regen, 165 for these 3 nodes. As you can see up here, these 3 nodes are 191, so these 3 are definitely welcome. It works really good. And then coming up here and specking over this way, you could spec into 8% more potency. I considered it. But this does provide a significant amount of effective hit pool. Plus, you're getting the reduced slowing potency of debuffs. So you got 10% here and 24% here, which is really nice. You're not even worried about getting slowed anymore at this point. So that is the main build here. Now going into the Talisman 2. So I have on the build, right? I have my Talisman 1 that I attack with. On Talisman 2, this one I have only Arctic Howl. This is the only thing that is applied to weapon set 2. Now, if we go into the POB, so all of the green is for weapon set 2. So we have spec'd down this way. And war cries have a minimum of 10 power. So what that's going to do is when we war cry with, we have echoing cry here. So if we go into Arctic Howl, we have echoing cry and we have war cry. So what's going to happen is grants 4 rage per 5 power. So it's going to pulse and generate our rage automatically. Right? So thank you to that node. It helps us generate rage. It also provides more empowered attacks and such as well. And then we took these nodes over here, which gives a 15% chance to empower 3 additional attacks. So our attacks are constantly being empowered and taking advantage of this as well. And then specking down into here, war cries empower an additional attack. So as we are in the maps, you will, when you're hitting monsters, you will see when you war cry, there will be a number here, and that will be how many attacks that you have available to empower. So you're constantly empowering your attacks. And this just gives you more of those. And then specking up this way, we went ahead and grabbed these 3 nodes here and this one here. It gives me Warcry speed, which makes the Warcry go faster. And then it debilitates the enemy, which means that the enemies, the enemies deal 10% less damage to us. So it's a debuff to them. And it also gives a big area of effect. So you can see that it's a huge area of effect. It covers the screen pretty much. So it's a very good node to take for your Arctic Howl. And then we went ahead and spec'd from here down and grabbed none of these. This crit chance doesn't matter, but the Warcry speed into critical weakness. So critical weakness applies a debuff on the enemies to where you're going to crit them. It's basically increasing your crit chance against them. Now, is the enemy critically weak? Yes, they are. If we take this off, you can see that the DPS is at 4.7 million, right? So it's not calculating that I have another talisman here. There's no weapons to talisman. So it's unable to calculate me having the Arctic Howl pumping the whole... you can switch it like this. And let's see if it allows me to configure it properly. Critically weak. Yes, right here, right? So it's applying it here, and then go to items, go back to weapon set 2, right? It is applying it that way as well. So either way, it is applying critical weakness. It is a significant DPS boost, about 2 million DPS, right? So that is it for the skill tree. I think we covered all of the nodes and the reasons why we took them. Okay. So going into, let's see here. If you look into the configuration here, there is a 33% more damage modifier. That is when I hit Savage Fury. So if you go to Savage Fury, it is a 30, it's a buff that grants Onslaught, and 30%, 33% more damage, right? So we're not applying Onslaught to the calculation manually because we have it activated in our calculations right here. Okay, so we do have Onslaught. We are using this all the time. It's a pretty significant buff, as you can see. 4.8, 6.4, right? So, and the way we have all of these equipped, you'll notice that when you piece everything together, when I'm weapon set 1, right? I have Berserk and Overwhelming Presence and Herald of Ice. I do not have enough Spirit or Savage Fury on weapon set 1. You can see my Spirit availability is 0. But when I swap to weapon set 2, Savage Fury is activated, Berserk is deactivated. We don't need increased rage effect on our Arctic Howl. It's simply there to buff us. So we deactivate this and we activate Savage Fury. As you can see here, Savage Fury is always active. So when we attack, we are building Fury. It works on the second talisman. Okay, so it's basically free damage, like massive free damage. Okay. So now that we have gone through most of the POB, we are going to go ahead and move into the rest of the build. So, going into our skills here. So Shred, this is the main DPS skill. We have Rapid Attacks. This is for faster attack speed. We have Execute. This is for big damage for when they are 35% lower life or lower, which they always get to. We've got Elemental Armament. This actually deals a considerable amount of damage. So you can see when I take it out, 78, 79. It's actually quite huge. If you go into the POB, you can see that Elemental Armament is amongst one of the better DPS options here. It is below these ones. However, we don't pick these other ones for reasons, and we don't use Overextend because this dazes you, which makes you susceptible for stun. And what that means is if you get stunned and get knocked over, like heavy stunned, then you're gonna die. The majority of the times that I die in this game is from being heavy stunned, fallen over, and then everybody, it takes forever for some reason. It takes forever to stand up, and then you die, right? So the other option is super critical. However, in order to take super critical, you will need to have your critical chance up higher. So technically, I can use super critical since my crit chance is very, very high, effectively at 74% and a base of 50%. You're not going to want to take super critical unless you have a very high crit chance. So technically, I can apply it over Elemental Armament. It's debatable, right? We might play it just because it would be cool. Garokin's Resolve. This is the highest DPS option you can put in Shred, but it is very, very expensive. Instead of this, you can run Long Fuse. It works great with Cross Slash. Close Combat. This is a 30% more attack damage. This is a massive multiplier. It does not show you the DPS here, and it does not update correctly in POB, but when you do apply it in POB correctly and break it down to only Shred, it is a humongous damage multiplier. So it does work very, very well. All right, moving on down to Pounce. So with Pounce, we've got cooldown. It feels really nice to have cooldown. You're able to pounce, Lunar Assault, pounce, Lunar Assault, and things are just dying, right? You're able to... The cooldown feels really good. We've got Holy Descent, which it creates consecrated ground, which adds to our life regen, and it also has reduced curse effect as well. So standing on that, you're not going to be getting hit as hard. If you got elemental weakness or, you know, enfeeble, it's not going to be as potent within your consecrated ground. And then a Fist of War, we have Fist of War 2. So we are ancestrally boosting our attack. That is this down here, this blue surround around us here. You can see that it has its own cooldown. So if I pounce, there's a cooldown, but there's also a second cooldown. That second cooldown is ancestral boosted. Okay. We're able to do this every 4 seconds. That's that, you know, like green splash of those crystals. We like to have this over Fist of War 3 because it goes off more frequently. The other one is like every 14 or 16 seconds, something like that. You don't get it as often, and I do prefer to have like less on one. I prefer to have, you know, less multiple times all the time getting empowers than having it like once every 14 seconds, right? 14 seconds, you can almost get through a lot of the map in 14 seconds, right? So having this more frequently is what I like. Ancestral Boosted is count as being empowered. So you are able to take advantage of the skill tree here of getting those boosted 20% increased damages, and enemies that we kill, they can explode, right? So very cool there. And then Shocking Leap, we always critically hit. So when we critically hit, we create shocked ground. This just helps apply shock. So that's the only reason why that is there. It is another damage multiplier for us. And then Freezy Mark, this is great. So this replaces the creating wolf situation that you get with Pounce. It creates more freeze buildup. It does freeze enemies that are primed for freeze. And when the mark is consumed, you gain 30% cold damage for 10 seconds. This is amazing. You'll notice a huge difference. If you're trying to freeze somebody with Lunar Assault, they don't have this mark on, you're going to notice a huge difference. It says only 34% more freeze buildup, but it's actually huge. You hit them with freezing mark and then try to freeze them, they're going to freeze very, very quickly. Okay, moving into Lunar Assault, Batir's Vengeance. So when you freeze a target with Lunar Assault, for each 1 rage, you gain 1% damage as cold. We have up to 80 rage, so this is a humongous damage multiplier. Moving into this Deep Freeze, this just makes enemies frozen for longer. I like them frozen for as long as possible because most of our damage is increases to immobilized enemies or frozen enemies. So this is great. You're also able to build ice crystals, a lot more ice crystals when they are frozen longer. And then we've got more freeze buildup. I like this because we don't do much damage when they're not frozen. So this is insurance to keep them frozen. I've got Ancestral Call 2. This empowers the attack. It is amazing. It also makes it to where you hit multiple enemies, so it's kind of like an AoE effect. It's very strong. And then this is optional. I swap this all the time. I'm currently running brittle armor. That way I do break armor on the front side and I'm not relying solely on Herald of Ice. It helps with unique monsters, rares, just gives that extra damage to physical damage and that front side armor break. You can run Area of Effect, which I really like, Magnitude. You can run Elemental Armament for more damage. Some people run Rapid Attacks, but you really don't need it. It's unnecessary because one swipe of Lunar Assault, the whole screen explodes. So I just use this here for some additional support because Shred and Cross Slash, they do a significant amount of physical damage. So it does synergize with the build. So Overwhelming Presence, this is great because it reduces the elemental threshold of enemies. And elemental threshold is how much that they are preventing. So every time you hit an enemy, there is a freeze buildup, and this reduces. This helps you freeze them or apply any element easier, shock, whatever, right? And then it also reduces their stun threshold. So since we're melee, we are stunning them all the time. So this just, it goes really well with the build. And then we have Vitality 2, giving us a huge chunk of regeneration. As you can see, 406 regen. If I take this out, look at it, 291. It's a significant amount of regen. And then Cannibalism 2, this is fantastic. This is going to keep you alive constantly. You just getting huge amounts of healing from killing enemies. This is amazing. I can't stress this enough. This is fantastic. Herald of Ice. So this is what explodes screens. You are not taking advantage of this against single target bosses. However, this is why screens are exploding. Basically, you're going to want Magnified Area for huge area of effect, Elemental Armament to do big damage, and then Urix Melting. So what happens here is fully breaking armor. The targets will take increased physical damage, and it breaks more armor, right? So Herald of Ice is breaking more armor. And then Armor Explosion, this creates additional explosion on top of Herald of Ice. It's like a chain between Herald of Ice and Armor Explosion. They work together, and then Armor Break, it you're breaking armor equal to the amount of physical damage that you are doing. We do have a ton of physical damage in the build, so it works really good. You do gain endurance charges. I'm not quite sure what to do with endurance charges. If, something to look into. I don't know if there's a way to put something into a build where you can consume them for something, but that there's an option there. Basically, if you want to get big explodies, you're gonna need, one of the things that really helps is having gain percent damage as extra physical on your weapon, because the way that I understand it is your Herald of Ice will do the explosion of elemental damage of ice. And then afterwards, because gain extra damage on the weapon will be the last modifier that goes through as extra damage, because there are steps the way that damage is applied. So then it's physical damage after all this, and then you get the explodey, armor explodey. Okay, so that's going to help you with that, getting that on your weapon. Moving into Arctic Howl, this is weapon set 2, second talisman here. It's just a random talisman that I have that I was crafting, and it bricked and hit accuracy. I threw it on here. So it's whatever. I just put leech just because it does hit enemies. So in here we have Ice Bite. So this when you freeze enemies with Arctic Howl, you are going to be gaining a cold damage buff to everything. Arctic Howl does freeze, so it freezes enemies that are primed for freeze. So you're always freezing with this, always getting damage buff. We've got Raging Cry. This gives you rage. Echoing Cry. This gives you multiple uses at one time. However, once you use Echoing Cry, it'll go off cooldown. You won't be able to use it unless you move a certain distance. It's not a lot. There we go. We're back. Okay. And then Blazing Critical. Every time we crit, we gain 15% damage as fire. So this is up all the time. Arctic Howl does do damage. It does crit. So we are getting this damage buff all the time. And then Cold Exposure. Every time that we critically hit with this, we are applying exposure, which is reducing the enemy's monster's resistances. So any enemy that isn't frozen, they are having their resistances reduced. So that's why we don't need that node in the passive tree as well, because we're getting reduction here. But everything gets frozen for the most part. Now, Arctic Howl itself, it does damage, it knocks back enemies, it freezes enemies that are ready for it, it empowers attacks. It buffs us with additional cold damage to attacks, and the empowered attacks that we give deal additional cold damage. So one of my viewers yesterday was asking me if I used Arctic Howl, and I said, oh yeah, I definitely do, because it's insanely good. Insanely good. So let's see here. Moving down to Berserk. So Berserk is a humongous DPS increase. It increases your rage effect by 69%. However, you do lose max life while you're not losing rage. So this is a tough one because we do generate rage all the time, so we're losing rage. So the interaction with Zealot's Oath and Berserk, they don't work well together. They don't communicate together very well. So you are going to need a significant amount of health regeneration, maybe a little bit of leech like I have in this ring. It is tough to get it all together, but the DPS increase is absolutely massive. So if we go into skills and we go to Berserk and we disable it, you can see we're dropping down about 1.6 million DPS, right? So with it enabled, it's just a humongous buff. So we're running Berserk. And then we have Lunar Blessing, which this is a war cry and an attack. This is an interesting skill. So when you pop Lunar Blessing, you are given a buff that grants 80% damage as cold, and its duration is based on how much rage you spent on it. So you want to build your rage up as high as possible, pop Lunar Blessing, and then it'll last as long as possible. So that's the war cry part of it. The second part of it is the moonbeams, which is the attack part of it. So the moonbeams come crashing down, and they are converting 100% of the physical damage to cold damage. And it's basically doing this big AoE effect while you're doing your thing. So I believe the way that this works is melee attack. So every time you use an attack, it is calling down moonbeams, right? So this is a big buff / DPS skill. We currently have cooldown recovery, keeping it going longer, prolonged duration, keeping it going longer, elemental armament. It provides a big buff to the moonbeams. If you go to moonbeams, we're at 81,000. If you remove this, 69,000. Magnified area, this just creates a big AoE effect. It works glorious. And then Cold Mastery, because this increases the base. As you can see, the buff grants 79, Cold Mastery 80. It also increases the Moonbeam damage. You see 76, right? 81. So you're getting a larger buff and you're getting Moonbeam damage with this. All right, so these are the ones that I have chosen to run. You can put Rage 3 in here. It does work. If you're having problems generating rage, you can pop in a Rage 3. It will give you attack speed to the moonbeams, and it will generate rage for you as the moonbeams come down. I did use it for a while. My rage is sustained, so now we don't need it. We're just fully buffing ourselves. And then we have Savage Fury. This is a buff. Basically, you're attacking, and you're generating rage. Once this, you can activate this once, I believe it's at 100%. Its duration is based on how much fury you have. So it gives you attack speed and damage. But you lose a bunch of life per second, which is not a problem for us because we specialize in life regen. All right. So those are the skills. And moving on to the gear. Okay, so let's start with the talisman. So the talisman has been something me and some of my viewers, shout out to Swift Kitten, we've been deep diving on figuring out what the best talismans are. So there are basically, for this build, you want a Magi. So rage on your weapon is huge. This goes to everything. Having as much rage as you possibly can is the way to go. Now, you may be looking at this and thinking, wow, that physical damage is low. But let me tell you something. This weapon is incredibly good. It is much better than what is on the market. So, like, if you were to look at talismans, there might be something up here nowadays. Right, and you go to DPS, and let's say this Jade Talisman at 1,000 DPS right here, you will look at this, and I can tell you right now that if I were to equip this weapon, my DPS would probably drop by 1 million or more. It's just not, it's not a good weapon, okay? There are reasons why this is not a good weapon. This is actually a very bad weapon for this build. Let's look at this one here. So this one here is Fizz with Cold and Onslaught. This one is probably a slightly better than this one, but it's still not good. This one here. This is a very good weapon here. This is incredibly good. This is kind of what we are aiming for here, okay, is something like this. Now, when you go into the POB, there are 2 different types of talismans that are the best. It's actually 3, okay? So 3 or 4. Number 1, when you're building, when you want the highest DPS for this build, is you want at least 8% crit chance on your talisman, which is the base for a Magi. However, this is going to be the best, one of the best suffixes that you can have is crit chance. And then the next is attack speed. You're going to want at least 1.4 attacks per second, preferably higher. Now, it's either attack speed or crit damage bonus, right? Those are going to be the ones that are optional. Either way, they're minimal. I believe attack speed is slightly better, but if you get crit damage bonus, it is still good. And then 5+ levels to attack skills is going to be better than 7 to melee attack skills. Now, why would I say that? It's because attack scales higher than melee in this build. Specifically, you're not going to get any benefit from Herald of Ice. you would only get it to your melee skills, right? Now your lunar blessing would receive the moonbeams would receive the melee. However, the way that the build works, it scales much better off of attack. It will go to the entire build instead of just your melee skills. But attack just scales better. Now, when it comes to your prefixes, there are 2 ways you want to build this, or 3 ways, or 4 technically. If you're gonna have if you go to the market here, right? If you're going to have a physical damage weapon, not a jade, because jades are just bad. They have extremely low attack base and crit chance base, right? And they have no rage, right? So let's see here. So anyway, so there's 2 ways you can do this. Okay, so if you're gonna run a physical damage one, you are going to need to run all 3 fizz. It's gonna have to be fizz percentage, fizz flat, and either gain extra damage as fizz or fizz percent with accuracy. However, those tiers are going to need to be very high in order to match the elemental damage talismans. So you're going to need to make sure that you're getting a tier 2 plus percent fizz damage roll on the high end. You're going to want to be around that 167, 169%. With you're going to want something higher than tier 3 flat. You don't need to use greater abrasions. They are okay. They will make a decent talisman, but they will not make a good talisman. You need to get that flat number up if you're going to use a fizz damage weapon, and then gain this extra physical damage or the accuracy. That's what you're going to want to make for your talisman if you're going fizz. If you're going element, fire is going to be the highest damage, next to lightning, and then cold. So technically, the highest DPS weapon next to the fizz, if you were to go T1 fizz all, the next highest DPS would be T1 flat. Fire, lightning, cold, flat damage. That is going to be a very high DPS weapon. Now, if you're unable to get either one of those, you would want to settle for something like this, where you have a T1 and a T2 or 2 T2 elementals with gain extra damage as fizz. And the reason why we have this on here is for the armor explosions, as I explained earlier. So you are getting a big damage multiplier through your element. It doesn't look like as much when you're looking at a fizz damage one, but trust me, this talisman is amazing. Okay. And then when it comes to your sockets, you're going to want 50% increased attack damage against rare or unique enemies, and gain 5% as extra all elements. Trust me, you don't want to put, like everything else that's on the market, you're not going to want to put fizz percent damage into your talisman. So if we go to my talisman here, right? And we go to the runes. So let's say, so you can see if I were to put a percent fizz right here, 18% fizz. Wait, where'd it go? Percent fizz. I lost it. Oh, right here. If I were to apply this, it would give me, right, 213% DPS bonus, right? If I were to put the gain 5 damage, it's 394 DPS. It's significantly higher, right? Also, the 50% attack damage to rares and uniques, 544. Humongous. Much, extremely higher damage. The other option is going to be your 1 to 60 lightning at 322, right? Much higher than fizz at 213. And then there is also fire at 312. Okay, still higher than Fizz. So you're going to see a lot of this on the market because when a talisman, it's really easy to make a talisman that has high Fizz percentage and it looks high, and the DPS on the tooltip in the market says it's high. It doesn't mean that the talisman's DPS is high. You actually have to go in and look in the POB and see exactly what is actually a high DPS talisman. Okay. If I were to try to craft, let's say that Jade that was on the market, it would be a very low DPS number. Trust me. Anyway, so that is the talisman. Moving on to the head. So the helmet. This is a cryptic crown, and we have. Let's see here. Let's pull that off, and then should be able to do it. All right. So we have T1% with some life and more percent for the prefixes, and then we have satisfied res, and then these are very, very important for your survivability, is the percent armor to elemental damage and chaos damage. You need these two somewhere on your armor. Why is that, right? Oh, I have my res capped. We're good to go. No, you are not. So most people, they think they get their res capped and you're good to go. That's not actually true. So there is right here, armor applying to elemental damage, estimated elemental damage reduction from hits, right? Also chaos damage reduction from hits. You pull this helmet off, I am getting 0 damage reduction from chaos damage, right? I'm also taking, I only have 63% elemental damage reduction from hits. Boom. 79 from elemental, 54 additional damage reduction from hits. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why people say that armor sucks, is because they don't know how to scale armor properly. You can't just slap armor on and think and your resistances and think you're good to go. Kind of like with energy shield, you can do that. This energy shield, you can really raise it really high and it provides a very large amount of damage reduction. Armor, you actually have to get these stats in order for it to work properly. You need to be able to convert a bunch of it to the chaos and the elemental damage. Okay, so these are a huge chunk of your survivability. If you don't have this on your armor somewhere, you're going to be squishy for sure. Okay. And then moving into the amulet, I have Heavy Frost with Energy Shield and Life Armor, +3 to melee skills, and we've got main stat and Chaos Res. All right, rings. So we've got triple damage, and we have resistances. And then we have, over here on this ring, we have life, res, leech, damage, and rarity. You don't need rarity. This is the only item I have rarity on, and I wasn't trying for rarity. I would much rather not have it. I would prefer damage. But these are basically, helping me with resist and damage. To the boots, we have a Chaos Res to cap Chaos Res. We have triple res on the boots. There is a reason for that. It is because of the uniques that we have. So, and movement speed and armor and energy shield. And then the gloves, we have crafted regular gloves. We've got res, we've got melee skills and damage and armor and energy shield. I crafted all of these armors myself. Okay. And that's why they are so good, because you're most likely not going to be able to buy things like this on the market. You're going to have to learn how to craft these things yourself. Through trial and error, I've crafted so much stuff. As you can see, if you go to cosmetics, we're on the private league, and I have this cool thing called tracking scroll of crafting. So these are all the materials that I have used in crafting in the last 17 days. 2200 exalts, 165 divines, annuls, just an insane amount of crafting that has been going on. But as you can see, through crafting, we have made some of the best gear that you could possibly make. Okay. So we have satisfied our reses through our rings, amulet, boots, gloves, and helm. Now moving into the chest. Now, I was rocking a regular chest until a viewer of mine, Swift Kitten, showed me the Grand Regalia, and it did provide about 5,000 more effective hit pool. So I went ahead and got this one, and then I twice corrupted it myself and landed on 4% additional physical damage reduction. That's absolutely insane. And why is 4% doesn't sound like a lot? Trust me, if you go to the tree and you see that these 5 nodes here, they provide 4% physical damage reduction. Well, this is 30, 30, 30, 30, 120. This is 135% armor to get 4 physical damage reduction, right? So that one stat provided a significant amount of armor, physical damage reduction. It's huge, okay? So with this, we got spirit, life regen, global defenses, and armor. This is absolutely perfect. We need the regen, we need the defenses, and we needed the spirit. So this works great. In the sockets, we have 3 armor and energy shield. We have a Rune of the Warding to have reduced effective curses. That's enfeeble, temporal chains, elemental weakness. So you're going to get hit with them all the time. If you don't have something to combat them, you're going to feel like you're walking through mud and doing no damage and getting hit really hard because your resistances are being lowered. This really helps with that. And then today's purchase was a Tekrod's Gaze. This gives me 1.5% max life per second. This is an insane amount of regen for one socket. You are most likely not going to be able to afford this unless you are generating a lot of currency. I think this one jewel cost me 200 and something divine. Maybe it was more. Maybe it was around the 300 mark, but it's a lot, but worth it for this build. Now, moving into the belt, we have a headhunter. This makes the build go absolutely crazy. I had a viewer come in. I forget his name, but he was like, "You're not wearing a headhunter?" I was like, "No." He's like, "You should try it out." So I was like, "Man," then I have to figure out my resistances, So I started getting, res on my other gear. I equipped the headhunter. I purchased this one here with armor and energy shield. It also satisfies your strength and dex issues, which is actually great. And then life with stun threshold is amazing. But the headhunter is absolutely amazing. So the hype is real. The headhunter on this build is absolutely stupid. It's beyond broken. So when it comes to uniques, these are the 2 that I would recommend highly. And then we have all charm slots available. I keep them on me and I swap depending on the map. So if, let's say this one has poison, extra lightning damage, right? So I will put a poison charm in. And if I'm, extra lightning damage means that they're liable to shock you, we'll put a shock charm in. So I keep charms. I like charms. Depending on what the modifiers are that I'm going up against, okay? So that is the gear. Now the stats here, as you can see me standing here, I am at 85% armor. That's absolutely insane, right? And 406 energy or regen with 3,000 energy shield, 2,000 life. So we are tanky, we deal tons of damage, and the build has never ever been better. So we used to run the wolf pack. The wolf pack just ain't cutting it. So we had to get him out of here. Anyway, I think we have covered most of the build. And why don't we just go run a mission? Let's close this out. And we will take you through a mission really quick. And let's see here. We're currently farming cleansed areas for fracturing orbs. So, yeah, let's get it. We're doing ritual. We're doing abyss. We have, I don't think you're able to see it. Can we go back? If we go into the map device, we go here. We are running a triple gold tablet setup. And all of our maps are T6 maps. Okay. So all tier 6 maps. One thing to note, okay, if you're running this build, I would recommend, I'm not sure if I have any left. If you're running maps, there are maps to stay away from, okay? One of the ones is monsters are evasive. This will make things difficult for you. Another one you want to stay away from is monsters have increased elemental threshold. If you see this, they're not going to freeze as often. You're going to be like, what's going on? It's going to make your runs tougher. So if you can, stay away from them. Also, players have less cooldown recovery rate. You want to stay away from that because you are reliant on your Lunar Blessing and your Arctic Howl and Pounce, Cross Slash, all have cooldowns. You'll want to stay away from that. And then the fourth one is players have less recovery rate, life, and energy shield. This will make life much difficult since you are using life to pay for skills. Your regen's going to be lower. Your energy shield life is lower. So those 4 modifiers, there's 4 of them. Try to stay away from them. I sell those maps constantly. Okay. Everything else is good to go, right? Everything else we can take care of. So, yeah, let's get it. So, just Lunar Blessing, Arctic Howl. We're pouncing, we're Lunar Assaulting, right? Everything is dying. And you'll notice that we are not going to have very many issues with life recovery or energy shields. It's going to be a very, very smooth run. We are at the stage now where these things are very, very, very smooth. There are a few things to be aware of, right? There's like exploding monsters. You'll see the exploding monsters. You'll want to stay away from them. But as we start killing rares, you'll notice that the build kind of goes into ultimate mode. And we're going to be all over the place, going absolutely crazy. So modifiers that give you more rares in your maps are going to amplify the build significantly. So you can see that our cooldowns are always ready to go. It's very, very nice. So we just stole that circle thing from the monster. Not actually sure what that does. I think it gives energy shield to allies. I don't know if it gives it to us, but we will most likely soon be teleporting all over the place. Oh, we got a haste shrine. Bruh. So the haste shrine with the wolf, oh my god, another one. Okay. Is quite the blessing. I mean, so we might as well just kill this boss really quick. I always kill the bosses in my maps because it gives maps. And maps are life, right? Pop Savage Fury, Arctic Howl. Pounce in. I don't even use cross slash most of the time now, just because the DPS is so high. So, but you know, there would be an option for cross slashing to go on there. But since the DPS is absolutely on insane levels right now, there, you know, you really don't have to. But another haste shrine, holy mackerel! We really just don't even need the haste shrine. Okay, so now we're teleporting, which is going to make the build seem a bit out of control, insane, in a good way. I mean, you know, like it can be a little outrageous, honestly, because you don't actually know where you're going. It's like, oh, okay, we're going this way, because it will just teleport you when you're trying to loot, which can be annoying, right? But the Headhunter provides so many buffs that, you know, it's just like, it's actually worth going through the annoyingness of the teleportation. Okay. And we've pretty much killed everything in the map already. It would be cool to do a temple run with you guys, because it's just a lot of fun. Like, my temple is not built the way, like, it's not built up yet. It's like a work in progress right now, but it does smash through these temples like you wouldn't believe. It's crazy good, right? So let's see here. We were in the process of rebuilding said temple. So we do have a couple of options here. Let's see. We can just go ahead and place this here for now. That's acceptable. And we do have some experience we can gain. So, and that's fine too, because basically we're in the process. We had a chain that went all the way around here of experience. That's how we're getting most of our experience. We're letting it die though. So it's totally acceptable. So we're just going to place these random experiences just to boost the experience, because we are almost to level 100 now. So absolutely fantastic. So we are in the process of rebuilding said temple into crazy, insane temple. But what you'll see here is that the wolf will go absolutely mad crazy in here. So we will we'll just go this way to start. This is like the spy masters, garrisons and such, right? Now it'll start a little slow, right? You're kind of ramping up as you're getting these buffs from the headhunter stacks, and you're maintaining your rage. But all of a sudden, you'll notice that we start to go crazy all of a sudden. And, you know, full rooms are just, you know, they're pretty much just evaporating. We're missing a dude. Where's the dude? There he is. Oh, we got a lock? Good. Grimfang the Unchained Beast. Oh, really? I like when, you know, what I like to do is try to get the outskirts because the dudes like to hang out in corners in the outskirts and such. You can launch forward with Shred. It's not always reliable, but it does work very well. But you'll notice like that we're not taking any damage. Like there is nothing that actually threatens us. Not in the maps and not in the temple. I'm sure if this was a super juicy temple that we would have absolutely no problem with clearing it within a very small amount of time. As you can see, the rooms start melting when headhunter stacks start building up. It starts to go very, very quickly. And we can almost explode the full room. If I had a little more AoE, I could probably one-tap the whole room. I just can't reach the corners that these dudes hang out in. So you're basically just Arctic Howling, Lunar Blessing, and you got your Moonbeams blasting all areas of everything. Unchained Beasts, they just die instantly. You do want to you do have 100% uptime with your Lunar Blessing. So, we got another lock. Fantastic. So we don't want to do the Architect's Chambers, right? That is off limits. We are not trying to destroy the whole hole itself, but we will move into this chain over here. This is kind of the experience chain with surgeons and synth-flesh labs that I was building while I was leveling, you know, just to give me more experience. Also, you can get the limbs in here, so we were doing that as well. And that way we do have our limbs attached for additional, you know, additional stats. So these rooms start to go very quickly. I do want to destabilize all of these rooms because the surgeon, he takes so long to die, and it takes a long time to for him to drop his items. So we do want to get out of going through these rooms. That's why we are kind of allowing a lot of the temple to die. So, but we do want to give him a second because he can drop medallions. He can drop items, currency. But as you can see, we're so ramped up now with headhunter buffs that full rooms are just being decimated in seconds. We got another lock. We want it. So we will get rid of like this. So we have 4 locks now. That's fantastic. Okay, so we're pretty much done. We have a couple of rooms left. Yeah, what do we have? A synth flash, a commander's chambers. All right. So yeah, it's pretty much, that's the build, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I try to explain things best I can. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. If you want to see any other videos, let me know. I do stream mostly every day. So stop by. I do stream on Twitch and on YouTube. Anyway, have a good one. Peace.